Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Living in Colorado Springs and I am Alicia Armendariz. Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 things that I recommend you guys highly avoid when buying a home here in Colorado Springs. Now, if you have any questions over anything that I mentioned, feel free to reach out to me. I am a licensed broker here in the state of Colorado and would love to help you with your real estate needs. Also, feel free to reach out in the comments if you guys have any questions about the home buying and selling process, or if there's just any topics that you guys want me to do a video on, make sure to leave them below. But these are the 5 things I want you guys to really try and avoid when buying here in Colorado. So not only are these tips that I think you should avoid when buying here in Colorado Springs, but just kind of buying right now in general at this state where the market is. The first thing that I want to mention is don't focus on the wrong things. And what I mean by that is when we have a conversation about what you're looking for in a home, what area you're trying to be in, what lifestyle you're trying to achieve, there are certain things that you can't change and you can change. If you have a home and you love the kitchen, you love the backsplash, you love all the updated cabinetry and what have you, but the backyard is super tiny and you got 4 dogs, probably not gonna be the best bet. Or you really need 3-car garage and the home we're looking at only has 2, but you love that backsplash and that kitchen. Those are things, that garage, yard, other factors of a home that you just can't change. You can always go back and update a kitchen, but there are just some factors about a home that you just cannot change. So when I say don't focus on the wrong things, you really got to stay focused on what you can and can't change, and then what are those non-negotiables. If you need to be in a certain school district or close to work or the mountains, that is definitely something you're going to want to stay focused on, because you can't change your commute. You can't change the distance from your home to whatever destination that you'll be traveling to on a regular basis. This also works the other way. I'd like you guys to keep in mind that let's say you do find that home and it checks all the boxes that you're looking for. The yard, garage, the, the location. It checks all the boxes, but maybe you don't like the paint color. Maybe the entire thing needs a little bit of remodeling and updating. Don't get discouraged. Again, stay focused on what you can and can't change. What are those non-negotiables? If this home has everything that was on your checklist, you can always fix up the cabinetry. You can always slowly over time paint and put in new tile instead of carpet. So that's just something I really highly recommend that you guys stay focused on, because so many people get in the weeds about it as they're looking at homes and they start getting frustrated when there really doesn't need to be any frustration if you just stay focused on your non-negotiables. So the next thing that I recommend you guys don't do is stay so fixated on the interest rate at the moment. Yes, the interest rate is not as favorable as it was kind of during COVID times. That was a really great opportunity for a lot of people. But at the same time, how are you looking at your loan? How is it being structured? Do you really plan to stay in that home for the next 30 years and never refinance? If that's the case, then yeah, that current interest rate, that's just gonna be your rate. But that's just not the situation that we're seeing right now from a lot of people. What I like to have people do is ask yourself, like, what's your situation with this home? What do you want your loan to look like over the next maybe 12 months, 24 months? Can you go back and refinance? Yeah, if the interest rates start to go down, absolutely. Do you see yourself moving in 3 years, maybe 5 years? These are questions that you do need to ask yourself, because you're gonna get so fixated on the interest rate that you're going to talk yourself out of the home buying process. And if you are still worried about that interest rate being somewhat high or just high for you, if you are renting, don't think you're not paying that landlord's interest. When you're renting, that landlord has already lumped together what that note is, that principal payment, that interest payment, and then a little bit more on top so that they actually can make a profit. So if you're already gonna be paying that much in rent, whatever that may be, you might as well go ahead and kind of make that leap into purchasing yourself, so that therefore you have the power in the next couple of months or whenever interest rates go down to refinance yourself and get a better monthly payment. The next thing that I really try and have my buyers avoid is buyer remorse. Now, going back to kind of those things that you can and can't change, I would hate for you guys to find that home that checks all the boxes, but now you're in an area that you thought you were going to be okay with, but your commute to work is an hour, or you love to hike and you found a home that you really like, the family really likes, but you're so far from the mountain. So buyer remorse can creep up if you don't focus on those non-negotiables. You really need to just zone in on an area first before we even start going out and looking at homes. Hopefully that's what my channel has been able to help you guys with, is highlighting some of the neighborhoods. But even so, doing your own due diligence, asking me questions, finding that area that you need to be in, whether it be for school reasons, work, lifestyle, that just is going to make such a huge difference. Now, the next thing might seem like a no-brainer, but it is choosing the right buyer's agent. And I recommend myself always, but that is just still important, because here in Colorado, the seller typically pays for the listing agent's fee and then also the buyer's agent fee. So even though a buyer's agent doesn't directly cost you, it may cost you the opportunity of a great home down the road if contracts and negotiations are not handled correctly. Just because a buddy at work or a sister or a cousin or your grandma's friend is licensed does not mean that you should use them. I highly recommend that you get an agent like myself who is embraced in the market daily, having those conversations, having those negotiations, hearing what other listing agents are doing, what their sellers are actually looking for out of an offer, and not just throwing your money out there and over list price. So kind of long story short, back in the springtime when appraisal gaps were a huge thing, the verbiage in your contract of what you were willing to offer as an appraisal gap could be very tricky. If you didn't have the correct verbiage or make the slightest little tweaks, you could end up costing your buyer more than a gap of list price to offer price. So if someone lists the property wrong to begin with, it was already high, and you put in an appraisal gap in the offer that you're willing to go, over list price up to this amount, but you don't have certain verbiage and the appraisal actually comes in low, you're gonna be on the hook for more money. Now that's a whole nother video and topic I could get into, but there are just things you need competency when doing these deals. You need to be able to, like I said, handle emotions between all parties involved when negotiating, because the slightest thing can kind of teeter-totter and tip your offer in a non-favorable way with those sellers and listing agent. And then the last thing, guys, is you gotta focus on winning the house first. I know some people from out of state, maybe they don't do this process the same way here in Colorado that they do there, or maybe you're just not familiar with the process, but that's my job to explain it to you. Here in Colorado, once we get under contract, then we have all of our due diligence done. Usually we can close in 30 days, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more, depending on how the transaction's going. But if you need that time to do your due diligence, 30 to 45 days, we can take that. We're gonna do our inspections, we're gonna get sewer scopes, we're gonna find out, if there's a well, we're gonna have the well permit pulled, the roof looked at, we're gonna do all of that. Don't get so fixated when looking at homes on all the information about the home. We're just not gonna have that. The listing agent most likely might not have that. Everybody has different concerns when looking at homes. Everybody has different plans for the home when they buy it. So that's just not something that we do here in Colorado. We don't ask for all that due diligence. We don't ask for reports. We need to focus on winning the home first. We need to find the home that we can see ourselves in, living out your day-to-day life. Are we close to school? Does it have the kitchen that you want? Does it have the yard for your dog and kiddos? We need to find the home, and then we need to be smart and aggressive on that offer to make sure that we can then get that home. Because here in Colorado, there are several phases when under contract that we can fall out of contract and get our earnest money back. That is something that I go over in the buyer presentation with you guys, but just because you won the house doesn't mean you're married to it. It doesn't mean it's suddenly yours. we've now started the dating process and we're getting to know that house and we're figuring out, hey, is it really the one for us? So again, there are several steps during the under contract process where if something just doesn't suit you right or we can't come to an agreement, you as the buyers can fall out of contract and get that earnest money back. So that is just something to be aware of. We do all the due diligence, we get into the thick of it, but that is after we've already won the house, after we've chosen the one and made a strong offer and then want to move forward from there. Well, there you go, you guys. That's just kind of the typical things that I see people get in the way of themselves with. Those are just things to just keep in mind when buying here in Colorado Springs. And if you avoid those things that I mentioned, then the home buying process is definitely going to be a lot easier and go a lot smoother on you. So if you have any questions over anything that I mentioned today, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help you with your real estate needs. Like I said, a lot of that stuff I do go over in a buyer presentation. So if you would like to schedule a buyer consultation with me, definitely feel free to reach out to my Calendly link or just any of the info down below. So I hope you guys enjoyed this info and I will talk to you next week. Have a good one.